Harbor Commission to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Abelman. Here. Commissioner Falk.
Here.
Commissioner Kilroy.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Here.
And Chair Krazan.
Here.
We have a full slate of commissioners and we can conduct business.
Great. Could I ask Commissioner Falk to lead us in the salute to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Do we have any blue folder items?
We do not tonight.
Moving to F1 on the consent calendar, approval of affidavit of posting for the Harbor Commission meeting of August the 12th, 2024. And F2, approval of the following minutes, June 10th and July 8th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve in a second of those two consent calendar items?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The consent calendar is approved. We have no excluded consent calendar items. So we're at H1, public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have any on Zoom?
No one in Zoom and no e-comments.
Okay, and then in the room here, we do not have a public hearing, so there are no ex parte communications and no item J public hearings. We have no items continued for previous agendas, so we're at L1, discussion and possible action to fill by appointment a new Harbor Commission subcommittee for the upcoming public boat launch project.
Yeah, the topic's to form the subcommittee, but we're actually going to take this as an opportunity to kind of walk you guys through the contract itself. It's scheduled to go to City Council on August 20th. It's our chosen finalists, our preferred finalists, but council can decide to get into contract with them or not. I'm going to introduce Dave. He's going to kind of walk you through the scope, the phasing, the timeline, a couple nice pictures as well. And then if you so see fit, after he gives you the update, you can ask him whatever questions you want. And if you see fit, we're recommending that you fill a subcommittee. I want to, make sure you guys realize that this subcommittee is going to be inherently different than, say, the Seaside Lagoon subcommittee. That was very design oriented. You're really looking at like site layout and planting types and building locations and square footage and circulation. This boat launch is going to be a technical process. It's going to be based on a lot of studies. I think what we'll see, and I don't know until the studies are done, is that there's going to be one or two ways that we can do this. So it's going to be a subcommittee that's inherently in tune with those studies, so there's a greater understanding amongst at least those three people, so that when the boat launch does appear before this commission for entitlements, those three kind of have a head start in terms of trying to understand the technicality of it all. And of course, we ask questions, and if there are options, we'll, if there's ever an opportunity for an option, we'll take it before the subcommittee for your consultation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave, and we'll get you started.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Good evening, commissioners. Dave Schrobe, Waterfront Economic Development. I wanted to kind of discuss with you guys this evening where we're at currently with negotiations for a preferred consultant to begin what we're calling phase one for the public design of the public boat launch on Mold D. Our preferred vendor has kind of broken this down with us into, phase one really is based on conducting those necessary studies, including parking, traffic circulation, the environmental studies, boat launch demand, anything that could really, be involved in the engineering aspects of this boat launch. They're also going to be taking into consideration a design that's in alignment with the amenities plan that was passed in 2022, as well as taking into account how we're going to navigate the CEQA analysis, which is going to see if we need an EIR, environmental impact report, That entitlement and CEQA document will also be coming back to you guys for approval as harbor commissioners for your part in that process. So you guys will be involved in that aspect as well. And we're also going to be engaging with both the Coastal Commission as well as Department of Boating and Waterways. The consultant is, as part of the RFP, we're asking them to help us navigate that application process. And the reason why we want to involve the Department of Boating and Waterways is because if they help us with the design process, then that puts us in good standing to be good candidates for their grant agreement. They've made grant agreements for projects like this up to $7.5 million in the past, sometimes more. If you look at my first picture here, this is an example of a boat launch that was built in Santa Barbara that was funded by DBA. So yes, obviously that's the great news, is that if we design it to their standards and involve them in the process, they'll kind of really pay for phase two, which is the actual construction aspect of this project. Obviously the downside is they're then involved in the design itself. So, we'll have to work with them a bit on what they want to see with the facility. And so again, Department of Boating and Waterways, we're going to be looking to them for grant money. We're going to be getting Coastal Commission approval. This is going to get us moving for the beginning phase of the process. For those of you who don't know, we're looking at Mold D is what we've been tasked for in the amenities plan for the positioning for this boat launch. As I mentioned, the contract negotiations are underway. We're looking to make that recommendation to City Council this month in August. And we have $650,000 that's already been appropriated for this project. This is kind of a sample task list that we've been working with the preferred vendor on. Really, it's just going over what we already covered, which is, site investigation, conceptual design, as well as the relevant studies that need to be conducted, community engagements, environmental studies, entitlements and permits, which obviously will be involving you guys as well, that DBOG grant application, and regular meetings and project management related tasks. And if we do form a subcommittee for this public boat launch, then the assigned commissioners would then be involved in that process and working with us and the consultant once the contract has been awarded. Here's kind of an abbreviated timeline of what we're looking at based off the negotiations in the contract. So for phase one, we're looking to this month award the contract and begin the project kickoff. Then next month in September, we'd be starting with the boat launch ramp studies and the conceptual designs. In November of 2024, we'd be looking at the environmental studies. These are kind of the more sophisticated engineering related ones. Then we're looking at December for entitlements and permitting and beginning that process. That's actually probably one of the longest and most lengthy parts of this project. It likely would stretch into 2025, probably 2026, but we're going to be starting that process early. And then February 2025 is when our DBOG grant application deadline is. So we'll be working with the vendor on making sure we get our application in before then so that we can start that process.
Why is that? I'm curious, why is there an application deadline?
It's kind of a rolling grant that they start every year. I believe it's related to their fiscal year where they have a certain cutoff point where in order to qualify for the money for that fiscal year, you have to get your application in, a few months ahead of time so they can decide who they're going to award it to and budget for that.
There's certainly going to be a stakeholders throughout all of our outreach. They'll be at the kickoff meeting. So they're going to be in tune of where we're at and they'll be kind of guiding us through it.
So if you miss the deadline, then it kicks the whole project.
We'd have to wait another year.
Another year.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, since, is any of the phase one monies recoverable by way of the grant?
No.
They're gone. Yeah. Did that money come from general fund, capital fund
Came
money?
from general fund, correct.
Money.
Yeah.
So there's not the money from the Harbor Enterprise Fund or the,
Nope. All came from the general fund just because of the state of the uplands and tidelands at this point. But the importance of this project in terms of getting it done and it being a linchpin for much more development in the future.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
It's just, we spent $3 million of general fund money on the parking, if I remember correctly. And now basically another $1 million on this. And there's a lot of other things that need to be done in the city. And so the harbor is a huge drain, let's just use an analogy, on the general fund, cities otherwise money.
To build a bit on what Greg said, the good news is that there are a lot of items that are going to be fundable through DBOG when we do reach phase 2, which is the lengthiest and most expensive part of this project. So things like the actual construction of the boat launch ramp, parking area, restrooms, making sure it's ADA accessible, all those things, even pay kiosks and stations if we have those things are all covered under the grant money. So there is a lot that will be covered by it. But unfortunately, this phase 1, like Greg mentioned, a lot of it is, the burden is kind of on the city because those wouldn't be covered by the grants. All right, well, that's all I have for you guys. Do you guys have any other questions?
Sure, if I can. Is there any other source of funding? Is there any federal money? I ask because the picture you showed of the Santa Barbara landing showed that they got federal funds on the sign.
Yeah, there could be other potential sources of funding that we could discover during that process once we enter contract with the vendor.
Most of the funding sources that we found, federal level, state level, any level, is really the construction portion of it all.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're hoping the DBAW grant will pay for the whole thing, and that's all we have to seek. But if it turns out that they don't have what we need, we'll have to kind of supplement if we,
Got it.
Yeah. I foresee a full construction from them, though. That's my anticipation.
I realize this is looking into a crystal ball, but do we have any vision to when the project would be completed?
So the tentative imagined end date, as called for in the amenities plan, I believe was 2028. And that's, one of the potential deadlines that we're seeing as we're navigating this contract process. But I can't put an exact, date on when it will be finished, just because,
We know how construction and weather.
Exactly. Yeah. Or what the results even of the environmental studies will say.
Just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have a question. Part of these studies includes traffic.
Yes.
Yes.
So I know we've talked about a concern about capturing peak summer use, and so how has that been considered?
It hasn't yet. It hasn't started.
Well, I mean, and how we didn't see the RFP, so,
Right.
or I'm just curious.
The RFP in general just says you shall conduct a traffic study. It'll be best practices. We'll work with the consultant. They've done this a few times. But you're right, we want to make sure that we get peak hours. There's another portion of this study that's a demand study where they look at the closest boat launches to our vicinity. And then they have their own formula for depicting, based on population in the area, just how many people they expect to use this, which will then dictate what they would like us to see in terms of width and number of lanes that we provide. Now, there's spatial constraints. So, if it says we need 12 lanes, obviously we're not going to be able to build 12 lanes. But that'll also have an effect on the traffic. The traffic
So
study
they could
itself.
pull from other cities' typical high peak, some data from
Sure, yeah.
another.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, that just comes to mind when I see this, because there's the boat usage need, and then there's the surrounding traffic, right?
Right.
Okay.
But we have hard data right now as to what the traffic counts are in the intersections likely to be affected by the project.
Recent
So,
ones.
yeah, and so we already have peak data, I would imagine.
Right.
It's applicable for the summertime, so it's not a question of whether Moffett, Nichols, or whoever actually measures under their contract. They're going to take those numbers that we already have for traffic data and then kind of forecast models
Right.
with the added load, so to speak, from the boat ramp.
Right. What will this add to
Yeah.
our already peak numbers?
Right.
For our new peak number.
Right, and their study will be really focused on that section where they're going to be building the boat launch and how that will affect the surrounding areas. So absolutely, that's a part of the proposal that we've been working on them with.
Okay.
And right now, we don't have any idea what the probability that we're going to need an environmental impact report. No, there's just.
No idea, yeah. There's something they call a phase 1 study. It's kind of a general environmental study that they use to determine how many other specific studies they need to do. It's kind of an overview that hits all the topics, and then they, you know, they'll see eelgrass and they'll go, oh, let's go get a study on that. And, oh, it looks like there was, I'm making this up, oil in the ground. Let's do a geotechnical study to see what is in there. What do we need to mitigate before we build this thing? And it just kind of branches off from there. If there's trees in the area, and there's not, but if there were, let's get some arborist reports going. How do these trees get affected? I mean, it just, the phase one kind of looks at everything environmental. There's a huge checklist of what they've got to check. And they hit the marks on, okay, we've got to do a specific study for that. It can get quite extensive.
Archaeological burial sites.
Yep.
So speaking of that, I know this ran into an issue with Torrance. The city of Redondo Beach ran into an issue with the city of Torrance because they broke up their EIR on their Delamo project into different chunks so that none of them required, anyway, it had to do with the EIR. And by breaking it in, they didn't have to do a higher level of, does that ring a bell at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, we talk about the amenities plan, how does that apply here? You've got phase one of the amenities plan is the boat launch, but we've got other projects that are being worked on and planned, and don't those have to also be included in the EIR under law?
Not if they're not built. So you would do everything that's currently existing plus what you want to do. And then when that second project comes online, then it's everything that's existing plus the boat launch plus what you want to do.
Check on that, because that's not what it was explained to us when Torrance did it. And in fact, we threatened to file a lawsuit against the city of Torrance for how they did their EIR on their whole.
You know, there are slight
small
differences.
project.
If you're doing it, excuse me, if you're doing it like a master plan, you're correct. The EIR has to cover everything. But we're doing project by project environmental studies for this kind of thing. So like had the public amenities plan gone through all these traffic studies and environmental studies before we actually approved the vision so that these individual projects didn't have to do so, that EIR would have covered everything that we wanted. But because we're going project by project, we can kind of mount up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like what Torrance did. All right.
So then the onus is on us to do smart things, knowing what we want down the
Exactly.
line. Okay. Okay. So are there any other comments on Dave's presentation?
No, thank you very much.
I just have a quick question. The entity that's issuing the grant, what's their name again?
DBAW. Department of Boating and Waterways.
And because they're issuing us this grant, we have to sort of go along with them in phase one. Do we anticipate extra costs associated with that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, to be honest with you, most of their requirements are going to be what's typically required in the building code. They're just going to make sure this thing is built to standard. It's not going to be, you know, you guys shall have a restroom. It'll be, well, if you build a restroom, make sure it does X, Y, and Z, right? You know, yes, in a way, they're going to be a voice in the room and they're going to have an opinion about what we're doing, but I think they're really going to toe the line on just make sure it meets minimum standards and we're okay.
And one thing I do want to add too is that in the cases where DBAW does want us to follow certain guidelines in the construction of the boat launch, their grant basically funds those additional aspects of the boat launch. So for example, if they say we need restrooms, their grant funds the building of restrooms. So like that will absolutely help with those related costs.
Do they have any decision in vendors that we use for any sort of? No, okay.
And they bring experience to the table.
Yeah, they've been doing this a lot all across the country, up and down California. You know, it's nice having someone like that in the room, right?
I hope they haven't been doing it across the country. I'd hate for DBA to be paying for a boat ramp in New Jersey.
That's true, that's true.
For the subcommittee that's part of L1 here, what is the maybe you haven't gotten to this point, but what is your thinking on the timeline of where meetings with that subcommittee fit in?
Yeah, I don't know, because this is going to be more technical in nature. You know, we haven't figured that out just yet. The vendor is certainly open to meeting with you guys as necessary. We didn't say like, you shall meet 4 times kind of a thing. It's just when we think it's applicable, we'll gather the troops.
So in this timeline, would you guess it would include September, October?
Yeah, I think we would definitely, once we had the studies done, we'd want to debrief you guys and kind of walk you through what the results were, just so that there's not a general understanding of kind of what we're up against. You know, hopefully it's straightforward and easy and we can build this thing with ease, but I have a feeling there's going to be some hiccups in terms of what's required and spatial constraints out there. So having you guys understand the challenges and potentially have ideas to brainstorm with the vendor about what we could do to address those.
Okay. All right, and then for the subcommittee, there's mention of turnover in the commission. Remind me, that starts with the October meeting or November?
October.
October.
It's October, okay.
October.
Okay, and then it's a 3-person committee, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Are we able to appoint an alternate who doesn't sit in, but in case somebody has to move away or get sick, can step in and we don't have to have a,
Yeah, I would say though, they would only insert themselves when
there was only
one of the 3
two.
was
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
for good.
Right.
Not just sick for a week type of
Exactly.
thing. Right. It'd be a permanent change, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You could do that.
That would save a lot of time and trouble.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'd have to come back and fill the position again at a hearing like this.
Right. Okay. All right, so I guess let's move to public comment on L1, and then we'll come back to deliberation here as to when we set the committee, subcommittee. So is there public comment on item L1?
Mark Hansen, King Harbor Boater. Good evening, Commissioner, staff. Before I forget, could I impose upon you to post the PowerPoint as a blue folder to the agenda item?
We can do that.
I can share that with people. That stuff's always valuable, but I know you guys are often, like me, working to the last second on stuff. There was a little bit of discussion, Commissioner Abelman asked about the Department of Boating and Waterways involvement, and staff accurately, said, yeah, they have guidelines. You guys can take a look at that. I think it's called Layout and Design Guidelines for Public Boat Launch Ramps, but it's right on, Google some words like that, you'll see it. And yeah, as long as we obey that, we can get the money, and our staff is quite aware of all that. And Measure C that we have to obey, Measure C took a bunch of their language right out of that document. So we know what we got to follow. This will not be complicated in terms of what we need to do. Late this afternoon, I sent you all an email. I think I'll just more or less read or paraphrase it here. I recommend delaying the formation of this new subcommittee until the new commissioner is seated in October. The prior happily dedicated position is terming out and will be replaced as a at-large position. The interviews for commission candidates will be conducted tomorrow, August 13th, and the mayor is scheduled to make appointments on September 3rd. The new harbor commissioner is scheduled to be seated with you at your October meeting. The boat launch subcommittee will arguably be one of the most consequential subcommittees, and commissioners with harbor and boating experience will be of particular value. We can presume that the mayor is well cognizant of this, and therefore there's a more than reasonable chance that he may appoint someone who could be uniquely qualified to contribute expertise to this subcommittee. Additionally, there are 2 commissioners who currently operate trailer boats in our harbor who could contribute significantly to the subcommittee. However, they both term out in 1 year, so preloading the subcommittee with a newer member would be advisable. Note that the outgoing commissioner, Mr. Kilroy, is currently serving on the Seabass subcommittee, so that position could potentially be filled at the same time, somewhat coordinating the assignments to subcommittees. So again, I recommend delaying the formation of the new subcommittee until the new commissioner is seated in October. Thank you.
Thanks.
May I speak to Mark's comments? Yes. Mark, one of the problems that I see with a new commissioner jumping right into a major subcommittee is it takes about a year to get your water wings up here. I mean, I was talking to Aaron earlier, and he said, yeah, he's been to 10 meetings, and it's, he's still figuring it out. I know when I came on 9 years ago, it was that way. I think everybody up here would say it's a one-year learning curve. So although that's a great thought, I'm not so sure it's practical.
Well, I'll share with you some details. I sent out a harbor boater-wide solicitation for commissions with a big emphasis on this one. I had 5 well-placed boaters in the harbor respond to me with interest. I answered all of their questions. I then briefed the mayor on the 5 people who had responded to me, mentioning what special qualifications they have. So I have no idea for sure which of the 5, did they all put their apps in, and I don't know who the mayor's going to choose. He could choose somebody other than the 5 that I spoon-fed to him, but what I can assure you is this isn't just your average commission appointment, okay? I made a special effort to bring in people who already have some really good knowledge of what's going on in the harbor, and some of whom watch all of these meetings, okay, and attend some of these meetings. So yeah, there's some real talent out there. But that would be, if you guys make the simple 60-day delay, well, you'll be armed with all that knowledge. You'll know who it is, and you can make that decision. Hey, is this a newbie who we don't want to throw into this? Or no, this is a person who's been around the block, we're comfortable. And you guys can make that decision at the time.
Unfortunately, isn't there 2 phases that happen within the next 60 days?
No.
No?
I don't think, not that I'm aware of.
Two steps on the phase 1 that happens within the next 60
You
days?
definitely had activity.
Kickoff on the studies.
Yeah, the kickoff on the studies, and I would assume there'd be a preliminary meeting of the subcommittee.
To talk about the studies, right?
Talk about the studies, so holding off 60 days might not be prudent.
Yeah, well, that's something to take in consideration. I'm just promising you there's some real talent out there.
Thank you, Mark.
You betcha.
Okay, are there any other comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, turn it over to the commission if there are comments on interest in being on the subcommittee or on when we should appoint or select those individuals.
May I speak? Yes. As much as I would love to be on this committee, I know that my days are numbered. I will term out in 2025, and it wouldn't really be fair to go through the preliminary portions. I do have a trailerable boat. The boat launch is very important to me. So for that reason, I don't think that I would be the best candidate to be on the subcommittee. So unless there's a spot you cannot fill, in which case then I would take it. But there's other people up here that I think that have longer terms that would be better off serving on the committee.
To that, I'll make the comment, obviously, I only have one more meeting, and then my almost 40 years of city service will come to an end.
Wow.
Because I have not re-upped for any other commission. I do think time is of the essence. I have seen things, most things, through nobody's particular fault, get extended and extended and extended. And anything we can do to keep the timeline as tight as possible, we should attempt to do. The delays just stack on top of each other. Somebody mentioned whether it be weather-related, whether it be red tape-related, and I don't think we need to start off with any kind of delay. And pick the best, and Vicki, you bring a lot to the table, and if it's only for a year, that's still pretty valuable.
Well, thank you. Like I said, I would love to serve on it because it's something that's near and dear to my heart. Harbor is very important to me. I've been hanging in here for 9 years. So if there's a place at the table, I would love to take it. But I would prefer to let other people who have a longer term step in first if it's something they want to do. Roger?
So if I can make a comment, so Matt and Vicky, either of you would be perfect for, Mark's, when the A-team shows up, they can fill in your
They
spot.
can fill my spot.
But I'm curious, Mark knows more than I do. Who are the two people with trailerable boats? Or who has a trailerable boat?
I do,
I do too.
yeah.
I don't term out though.
No, you're good.
Okay.
Who else has a trailerable? Okay.
You do?
I don't term out for another year.
I think I've got 2 or 3.
At least 2.
Seems longer.
Yeah.
It sounds like for this type of subcommittee, having
Trailerable.
trailerable boats or experience and maybe engineering or the environmental aspects kind of seem the most relevant.
So Roger, you want to be on?
I would love to be on it, but I volunteer for almost every subcommittee and, I hate having all the fun. So, I'm sensitive to that, but I'd love to be on it.
Yeah, I'm only on the sea bass right now, so, okay, I'll step in and I'll take it. Aaron, you want to get your
I'm
feet
not
wet?
so sure that I don't have a boat. I don't do much with environment. I'm happy. All that aside, I would love to do it, but I don't want to take it away from somebody who will have more experience in that area if there's one of the two of you, I suppose, that would be more fitted.
Chair Krazan?
Yeah, I'd be happy to too. I kind of same comment as Roger. I'm on a few, but I don't have a trailer boat, but I certainly grew up in a family trailering our boat. And I'm an engineer, but
Engineering's important.
yeah, I'd be happy to.
I would also be happy to do it myself, but I don't know if I am as qualified with the same exact reasons. I've certainly done water skiing and trailered, so I'm familiar with it, but yeah, I don't know if, we should pick the most qualified people, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly willing to do it.
Roger, it says here 2026 for you.
Thanks.
Nice.
That's what I thought.
So would you consider being an alternate,
Yes.
being the fourth? Should we need someone to step in, like when I'm termed out, you could step in?
Yes.
Looks like we have our subcommittee unless somebody else.
Yeah, Ryan, I'll say,
Trailer, I've never trailed.
despite your inexperience with boats, you've asked a lot of insightful questions when, the paperwork and legalese and dealing with the state comes up.
Sure, I mean, again, I'm happy to do it, I'm happy to help any way I can. But if there's somebody that is, and I think an engineer or somebody with environmental experience might be, what I don't want to have happen is sit in a meeting and there's just all these terms thrown at me that I'm just spending most of the time Googling. Does that make, I don't want to waste any time trying to get, run on
think
a
it'll be
moving
like
train.
It does make sense. Can I ask you guys, you had that rough schedule of activity. Are there different phases where, someone with Ryan's background would be more valuable on the subcommittee? I mean, maybe at some point we swap out an engineer, swap in whoever shows up, swap in someone who's better at legal stuff, which is also you, Lisa, if I'm not mistaken.
You do have to be careful though, because if you swap out too many times, then too many people have kind of
You
been
dilute.
Okay.
baking the dish,
Okay.
And you don't want to come off with, when it does become an entitlement and it's actually requesting permits, that 6 of you have been involved,
Fair enough.
right?
Okay.
And I will say this, in my past experience working with commissioners of various backgrounds on these subcommittees is that we always value the input of the engineers on your guys' team, but also it can be helpful to have people who are looking at it from a different perspective as well too. So I think any of you would make a good addition.
Thanks.
Okay, I have a newbie question.
Sure.
Can you explain to me what it is that these 3 people are going to know that's going to be so much more than what the rest of us know? Because it kind of seems like to make any decisions, we would all need to have an understanding of what's gone into this.
Well, the nice thing is that we're going to be working with a qualified contractor once selected that has experience building these types of facilities, who can kind of walk us through the process a little bit in those subcommittee meetings on their plan of action, why they want to, take certain courses of action and, get our thoughts and feedback on that. So, I don't think you necessarily have to be the perfect expert on every single point that they're going to bring up, because we're going to be working with experts in this field. So that's my thoughts.
So why doesn't it just come to the whole,
Because it could take hours to discuss all the stuff. The idea, when I started subcommittees, when I was chairman a long time ago, was we would start to write a letter to the city council in favor of, and we'd all sit here for 2 hours going over the bullets and the points, and it would waste 2 hours of where the subcommittee got together, wrote it, brought it back, everybody read it, made a couple of changes, and it was done. And so the subcommittee process was born. And
so the
it's worked.
subcommittee streamlines what comes to the whole
Exactly.
committee? Thank you, that answers the
It's a
question.
bit more nimble, right? I mean, just setting up a meeting like this is a little onerous.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're
Right.
welcome.
I think also because it's not agendized, it's not subject to the Brown Act, something comes up in their subcommittee meetings, they can pursue it. if
Without
they-
announcing it, yeah.
Without announcing it and going through that whole Brown Act issues. So the
Yeah,
other,
it's a streamline of us, so that we're not here for hours going over, if each person has a comment and then we have to go back around again, and it does get really time consuming.
So what I'm hearing so far is Commissioner Callahan, Commissioner Carlson, Commissioner Kazan, and as an alternate, Commissioner Bauer.
so moved.
Wow. Is there a motion there?
There is now, it sounded like a motion to me.
Second.
There we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Oh,
Can we vote on ourselves to be on a subcommittee?
yes.
Or-
Yeah.
Okay, then aye.
'Cause
Gotta-
there's other
Otherwise,
people.
otherwise you'd never, you'd never be able to elect a subcommittee. Because
All
you'd never be able to
opposed?
get a majority.
okay, the motion carries. Subcommittee for boat launch has been determined.
Awesome.
Callahan, myself, and Roger.
Callahan,
alternate.
Curzon, and,
Kazan.
yeah, Callahan, yes, all the Cs.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Cs.
a law firm.
But I would think it would make sense for the alternate to be there, at least for the first meeting, or.
Can't.
I can't.
Nope.
Brown Act violation.
Brown Act
Oh, okay,
violation.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I'll give you the notes.
Okay.
Okay,
And come to think of it, they can't even report to you what went on.
No,
That would be a Brown Act violation.
yeah,
Wow,
you're in the dark until one of us leaves.
okay.
Well, unless the
When it gets
subcommittee
brought back
reports.
to
When it's here,
Harbor
yeah,
Commission.
Can
but the
report.
subcommittee
Yeah.
actions, yeah.
Yeah, so a subcommittee can report at every Harbor Commission meeting, just leave it as an agenda item.
Right.
okay. We are on M1 Director's Report.
Yeah, okay, so I've got a few updates for you guys. Starting off with some good news. If you guys remember, about 2 years ago, we ended up hiring Chris King, and he became kind of a conduit on the land side of things down at the harbor. Organized the Public Works Division, really, became a supervisor out there for all things landside improvements, repairs, maintenance, helping with special events. It created a conduit between him and I, so the waterfront department works really closely with him, and we're constantly, and it's really worked out well. What city council ended up doing at the budget was they created a new position in the fire department specifically to do the same kind of function as a supervisor, but on the water side of things in our harbor patrol. So this person, the harbor patrol is like a 24/7 on and off, and they've got crazy hours. This supervisor would be 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, barring an emergency or something. And that's so that they can coordinate with the waterfront department and the various departments for notifications, for spills, for inspections, for showing up to these kind of meetings, just to get them on our schedule and to coordinate better. They don't report to me, but they'll show up to my staff meetings just like Chris does every week. So I think it's a good stopgap in terms of increasing Harbor Patrol presence down there. They'll be able to do a lot more, understanding what our needs are, and it's an added position. It's an actual new body that'll be out there.
What's it called, an inspector?
It's a supervisor of some kind. I forget the actual title. Harbor Master? There you go. Yeah. Let's see here. New public boat launch, don't need to get into that. We just went into that. International Boardwalk pavers, still slated for September 3rd, still on schedule. Dave's working closely with our Public Works Department. They do have a project manager that's undertaking this. They're working through the actual schedule of, which areas get performed first, second, third, how that affects that business. The goal, again, is to keep everybody open for as long as possible. I think the goal is 100% open. I don't know if that's going to be the case. There might be a day or two where someone's going to close down. Not too sure. But Dave's going to be working with them to do the messaging, to get the tenants on board, to get them informed. So we're working through that. Update on the U.S. Army breakwater repair project. This isn't as great of news. The Army has actually run into an issue with the LA Regional Water Quality Board. They're not immune to the red tape that we all must go through. They've got all their environmental permits that they need to get, but there's an environmental assessment that needs to be signed by the Water Board, and they're having trouble getting that signed. And the crux of it is the Water Board is adding conditions to the assessment before they sign it, and the Army is contesting those added conditions. And essentially what the conditions are is that the U.S. Army, who's a federal branch, must abide by state water board regulations. And the Army's saying, no, we don't. We just have to follow the federal regulations. So at this point, it's the attorneys on both sides yelling at each other. And there is a significant delay. It's looking like a contract award won't be awarded until December. And that work actually won't occur until the spring of 2025. So it's a significant months of delay. They gave us this update last week. I think the rumors have kind of gone out. It's 100% true. Not the greatest news. They even said they're disappointed. The linchpin is that this isn't the only project that they're running into this issue with. There's about 3 other ones. So it's really the group of these 4 projects that they're kind of going to bat with their lawyers to make sure they don't have to follow these state regulations, or they do. They may, LA Water Quality Board might win, but it changes all 4 of those projects in terms of what they have to do and how they have to report. So yeah, not a great update there.
Sorry, before you go on for that, if I may. We had discussions about this last year where we discussed having the harbor master, and we have one now, send out a letter saying, warning people to do something. It might be worth sending out a letter now to the stakeholders saying, same as last year, whatever we did last year, whatever you got last year, did you have enough sandbags or,
Right.
I'll quit beating around the bush. Is there any better preparation we can make now that we have a couple months warning?
I think so. I think it's a great idea. I mean, this harbor master, it's actually Kirk Mahoney. He was promoted to the position, so we don't have to go out and find somebody.
Great. Fantastic.
So it's something that this person could start immediately, so I'll reach out.
And of course, I mean, the yacht clubs, the marinas, the restaurants, Najas, I can keep the IPA at my house if I have to.
Alternatively, still kind of on the same subject, Dave's working on a boater alert network that isn't live yet, but our police department and fire department and waterfront department and our communications team here at City Hall are all pretty far along. It's kind of in the beta testing at this point. So that might be helpful if we can roll that out as well.
Great.
But you need somebody to notify the public that exists.
Oh yeah, that'll be a part of the process, yeah.
Thanks.
Last city council meeting on August 6th, we finally got our blade signs contract approved. Thanks to Mio, she got that negotiated and approved. So we'll be working with this contractor to design kind of the housing unit, like the ornamental work of the outside framework and how it's situated. And then MEO will be working directly with the tenants to actually get their chosen logos on there. We're going to be responsible for, the maintenance of the housing and all that. We're going to pay for the new logo for each individual tenant on this first round, but as new businesses transition, they'll be responsible for kind of putting their insert in on an ongoing basis. Right now, they're not going to be illuminated. There's just too much in the way of concrete work that would need to be done, and the cost would be kind of high. So this contractor's not looking into that aspect. But Chris King of our Public Works Department will be looking into some kind of like solar component where potentially each, hardware can have a little solar issue that can hopefully power it. Some external lights that just maybe face it. Don't know if it's possible. It'll be after the fact and won't be involved in this contract, but just FYI. Let's see, International Boardwalk Storefront Improvement Program. Dave successfully got our first contract agreement approved by City Council also on August 6th. We've got another one coming on August 20th. The one on August 6th was Trade Winds, right?
Yes, it's for Trade Winds. It was about a $3,000 grant for repainting and resurfacing of the facade for the business, removing old rotten wood, replacing it with a new and fresh and updated look. And then the upcoming contract we're going to be having on the 20th is likely for Booze Treasures, which is going to be an even higher amount, probably around $7,000. And that's going to be for the same thing, replacing rotting wood, updated doors and
New signage.
new signage, giving it kind of a fresh look.
Yeah, and then we've got a few businesses on the hook that they're discussing options with Dave, so it's starting to kind of get going here, which is great. What else do I have? I think that is actually it.
Yay.
Seabass Grow Pins?
Oh yeah, Seabass. So let's see here. We are currently probably September-ish. Is that what we're looking at, Mio?
Yeah, we'll have to bring this to council on September 3rd. Initially, it was for August 20th, but we're still
Yeah.
kind of fixing up the contract a bit.
Most of the contract's been negotiated and agreed upon. We're just running into some issues with their insurance and some of the details around that. Nothing we can't get over. We were targeting also August 20th, but I think we do need those couple of weeks just to kind of get everything situated. So once that's under contract, they'll be essentially given the authority to procure materials and then work with the subcommittee directly on how exactly they plan to build this thing. Obviously, you guys know where. It's over by the Harbor Patrol. But we'll call a subcommittee meeting, maybe even a kickoff meeting, just to introduce everybody and kind of go over the time frame, the schedule, and the cost, and all that good stuff. So,
And that's the one that Matt's on? Or Jim was on?
Jim was on it, and Lisa volunteered to be on it,
Okay.
and then it was
I'm on it.
you,
So
and then
there's
we'll
no holes to fill?
eventually, Matt, were you on that one?
Which one?
Seabass?
Seabass.
Seabass? He was. So we will have to,
So we'll want to do that next meeting.
good call. Yeah. Which brings me to next meeting. We'll have that new topic. And we will destined to get Seaside Lagoon in front of you guys. The subcommittee, just an FYI, I will be reaching out to you probably next week to go over some design options with you individually. Get your opinion, and then we'll go to the farmer's market to you guys on September 9th, and I'm planning to go to council on September 20th. The idea being, this is the scope, do we do the complete redo, tear everything down and rebuild from scratch? Or is this just the put a Band-Aid over it and fix it? And that's really gonna be, those two options are gonna be going to you guys and the costs associated with both of those, and to city council. And once city council decides which option we're gonna pursue, then our consultant will only focus on that, and they'll start the entitlement process with our planning department, which will then go before you guys again, but this time for formal entitlements, for the design review, for the entitlements, for the environmental review, and then it'll also go to Coastal Commission, because it's, right on the coast there.
Okay.
Matt,
Yes.
I'm not sure how much longer Seaside Lagoon is open, but while it's actually open, maybe we do a pop-up there.
Yeah.
Or if there's, material that can stay up there for people to view and comment, because man, those are the people
They're using it.
using it. Yeah,
That's a good point.
just a thought. Thanks.
So those will be the two items we have in September. So if you can't make the September 9th meeting, let me know. I would like to have a quorum, and I'd love all of you to be there to talk Seaside, to be honest with you. And that's it for my director's report.
Thank you. All right, commission items and referrals to staff.
Sorry, I had a question on that, another question, if I may, on the director's report.
Yeah.
Just a couple other topics we hit once in a while. Is there any news on the educational facility?
Yes, we're going to be going to closed session August 20th to talk about initial discussions between Marine Mammal Care Center and the property that we own that used to be Joe's Crab Shack. Everything that we've discussed with this prospective occupant has been informal at this point. I think individually, they've probably spoken to most of the city council members, but we've not formally gone and had a discussion. So on August 20th, we plan to start that.
Great, thanks. And then the sailing program and the slips at the Portofino.
Yep.
Any news there?
Coastal still has it.
Okay.
They're reviewing our proposal now. We had a meeting, I believe it was 3 weeks ago at this point, where they had some follow-up questions for the community services team. I was on that call as well. They said it was just going to take a couple weeks. I think we're close. I'll probably reach out to them this week just to kind of get a status update on where they stand with that. But as soon as we get approval from them in a letter format, we can take it to council and get that contract going.
And then last one, any news on leasing, anything newly open or newly leased?
We had a couple of extensions that we went through on August 6th. It was a Pearl store in the Robert Resnick landing spot. They've been there for years. They've re-upped for another 5.
Great.
There's another sublessee over at HK Pacific, which is the old Maison Ritz, and then that single-story area also happens to be a jewelry store that is going in on a month-to-month basis. That's being heard on August 20th by City Council. We have about 4 leases being negotiated right now up at the Pier Plaza office complex. Most are renegotiations, people who have reached a month-to-month status and want a little bit more time. There is 2 prospective brand new tenants. One is a kind of like with the open lines. Do you remember exactly what their business model was? It needs a CUP, so it's not a lease that's going to get finalized within the next 4 months probably. But we went to closed session, got general verbal support from council to proceed, and they're going to proceed with that CUP process through our planning department. Once they get the CUP, then we'll bring the actual lease back to council for the final consideration. I feel like it was like a speech therapy type of a use. I might be over simplifying that, but and then one of our schools is actually expanding over there too. I forget which one it is though, off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
And then I heard that,
Savoir Faire?
No,
Savoir Faire?
it's not. Which one? First Steps. Smaller than Savoy Fair, but they're expanding into the now vacant office complex next door.
okay. And then I heard that Hot Dog on a Stick is closing.
Yes.
I heard that too, yeah.
We went to say goodbye.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart that they're closing, but it is bad for my heart that they stay open.
We did recently re-up with, not El Cinco was it El Cinco de Mayo? The Mexican food place? They've got another 5-year contract.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. And then the Waterfront Pizzeria, we're on a month-to-month with them, but we re-up with them as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, we used to have a harbor master, didn't we?
Yes,
Yes.
Well, Vicki, of course, would know.
yes,
When
we
did we,
did.
when did we get rid of that? Was that in the recession when we were doing all the,
Yes, when John Pitzer left.
about 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, I think it was probably when the recession, sounds like about when the recession hit, and there was a lot of cost cutting across all the departments, a lot of personnel in various places. That's was my recollection of that.
Could I ask a question? What's going on with the Fun Factory?
So we're advertising it right now. We've got 2 leasing agents that are going out. The direction from council is family friendly,
Okay.
whatever that means. We're
heard
keeping
there-
it broad on purpose just to see the ideas that could come in, really.
I heard there was an arcade possibility.
Possibility, yep. We did get a cold call from the Santa Monica Arcade, people that operate that one out there. Don't know if that's going to come to fruition or not, but discussions have started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have anything?
No, thank you.
No, I've babbled on.
I'm good.
Matt?
I'm good.
I'm good. Ryan? No?
I have nothing, sorry.
Oh, I thought, okay.
I just have the directional navigation sign. They're just not responding?
They say it's on their list, their to-do list, and you'd be impressed how short and sweet these emails are to me about their tenacity to get it done. It's, yep, on the list, you know.
They're actually getting rid of some marker buoys out at sea, and I think they're getting rid of the red and white marker buoy in the mouth of our harbor and going to more digital navigation and radar.
Maybe that's why there's such a delay. I don't think.
Oh,
I wrote many people, and ours is staying.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, ours
Okay.
is staying.
Ours is staying.
Commissioner Falk did a great job. Great job.
I've been caught out there when the fog rolls in without radar.
Yeah.
Literally standing on the front of the boat, listening for the bell to get back to the harbor.
Yeah.
Not everybody who goes out of this harbor, I do now, but then
Has radar.
doesn't have radar. Kayakers don't have radar.
Smaller
Stand-up paddle
boats,
boaters don't have radar. And you can listen and get back
By the bell.
by that bell.
yeah, I think I've been asking for 2 years.
I know.
I don't know, it's been a long
I
time.
You've been
will
asking
look
for
and
a
see where I
while.
read that, but I read it
Yeah.
recently,
Okay,
so I'll double check. Thank you.
No, I mean, this is fairly recent. I mean, because you've been asking for 2 years, and then we got word.
They voted to not get rid of it after all in like late March or early April.
Okay.
okay. So
Yeah.
maybe they sat on it till then? And
I,
then,
I think people complained. Most of the ones they were going to get rid of at small harbors, they realized not everybody has radar. They are still needed.
okay. Well, if there's anything that we should do to help,
I mean,
I don't know, more letters, I
yeah,
guess.
the more emails they receive seems to work.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah.
So I apologize for dragging the meeting on, but I try to follow the agenda. So I had questions on the director's report, but I do have 2 commission
Oh,
items
sure,
I
go
want to
ahead.
mention. Last month I mentioned that my boat had been broken into, and I want to thank Harbor Security and the Pier Police. I filed a police report on what was missing. That's an important step, so if anybody's losing anything, please do that. It gets the police's attention, lets them know there's problems there, and it also helps you get your stuff back. Because when stuff is recovered without a police report, you don't get it back. I had heard all kinds of stories that it was, people coming by boat and working up the harbor. I'd heard it was, guys going around by skiff. It was 2 little kids on e-bikes. It was 2 14-year-old kids. And again, spreading the word was the second thing really helpful. I spread the word through the community, and a friend showed me a Snapchat video of a kid selling a bunch of stuff out of his bedroom, including my rods. And all of a sudden, Sergeant Weiss and the Pier Police reached out to me. I showed him this info. He knew the kids, and he called me back within 5 minutes and said, they're bringing your stuff back. So I really want to thank the Pier Police, and I'll put this in writing and thank them as well. But it was like an old-fashioned movie. I mean, they clearly know the community and know what's going on in the pier and knew how to get this stuff and got it. So that really worked out well. So I really owe them thanks for that. Second thing I want to mention is oil spills and stuff. I've been in the harbor a lot lately. We mentioned a 300-gallon diesel spill back in April. There was another, and we knew the source of that one. I don't know if there's any fallout for that or any punishment from it. There was another one on July 1st of about 100 gallons that we never found the source of. That was another diesel spill. And then on July 21st, there was a gasoline spill. And again, credit to the Harbor Patrol, they were able to find the source of it. It was throughout the North Basin and parts of the harbor, and it stank. And eventually, somebody found the boat doing it, called Harbor Patrol, and Harbor Patrol caught the guy, solved the problem, and probably really avoided a serious issue. The problem was there was a boat going for a joyride around the harbor, as you should, and they had a significant gasoline leak inside the boat that was running into the bilge, and the bilge pump was pumping it over. And so they were just driving around the harbor throwing gasoline all over the place. And, you know, if you're not familiar with boats, it's a common, scary problem that you fill up the bilge and engine area with gasoline fumes. And then the next time you start your boat, if it's a gasoline boat, you're supposed to start a blower and air out your bilge. And if you don't, you can have a significant explosion. I mean, there's videos of it, and the boat goes off like a movie. And so we probably would have had that. And you know, thanks to somebody calling it in and the Harbor Patrol chasing it down, we avoided that problem.
That's great.
So now the not so great thing is, you know, here we are in a couple months, we've had 3 spills. Boy, I'm glad we have a harbor master, because I'd love to be more proactive about these things instead of just, you know, getting out the booms after the fact and doing cleanup. You know, so thanks.
Yeah.
That's my story.
Thank you.
No action, just a story on the harbor. Thank you.
And are the people that cause these spills, are they somehow financially responsible for any of the cleanup?
Technically, I think they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I don't think that is, I'm unaware of that ever being done.
No, it's seldom if ever done.
Right.
Now, I would think if you do it once and then 2 weeks later you do it again, they're not going to be happy with you and they'll probably enforce it. But not the first time around. Although I have seen them inflict fines when a boat sinks and there's a slick.
No, there's, you know, in the fee schedule, the fire department, you know, Harbor Patrol has specific fees for like salvage and, you know, taking care of situations like that. But there's not one for an oil spill, but there is the general practice of, you know, once you find the culprit, you make sure they pay for the services, whether it's done or not, you know, it's something different, but.
Yeah, and there could certainly be extenuating circumstances, and you got to ask, you know, how much is it accidental? How much is it carelessness? You know, has the person learned their lesson, or do they need to be punished, or, you know, do we need to recover fees?
Yeah, but if you have gasoline being pumped out by your bilge pump, you had to have smelled it, right? You had to have known that was going on.
I would think so, but, you know, I wasn't there and didn't, in all 3 cases, you know, I wasn't part of talking to the people who did it.
It just seems like enforcing, you know, somehow making, you know, reclaiming that money, and it would certainly, I think people make them more careful. This is,
Thanks.
Okay, any other referrals or commissioner comments?
I have one.
Sure.
So the end of July, I think it was July 30th or 31st, I went to a little event at the beach here right next to the pier, what the Marine Mammal Care Center did in conjunction with the city of Redondo Beach. They released 4 rehabilitated sea lions into the water, and it was so cute. It was a very nice experience. It sort of really dovetails into our need and interest in this education center. I would have liked to have known about it other than from a friend of mine who volunteers at the mammal at the center. I think that's something that, you know, we should. When I asked if I should like give them my name, and there was a spot for the harbor commissioners to put their names in. So I'm not sure how we find out about those things a little bit ahead of time. but it was a very, very nice event, so.
Yeah, we got notified just a couple days beforehand, so there was limited time on this one. And also the email that we got, it was kind of, don't tell too many people.
Well, they
It
don't
kind of
want a huge
affects the sea
crowd,
line.
yeah.
Right.
They
So
had like
I took the
100
email a little
kids.
like, well, do I let everybody know? Do I not let everybody know? You found out. I said, go ahead.
Yeah, it was
Do
really,
it.
yeah, this
Yeah.
isn't about that. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
it was a really, really nice event, seeing these 4 little sea lions just bolt for the water.
Right.
It was cool.
So the opposite of that, there's something about a whale washing on
Yes.
the shore.
Heard about that too,
They
yeah.
towed it out.
They towed it out?
Yeah.
I tried to end on a happy note.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. You just made me
Second to
think
last
about
meeting,
Marine
yeah.
Land.
Let's bring up that dead whale.
Whales die, just like people.
They were talking about towing it out and feeding the
crabs,
ecosystem at the
yep.
bottom of the ocean. So,
Usually they die out there and go to the bottom.
So-
Yeah.
it all goes
Okay.
around.
Motion to
All right,
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. See you.